Hello, YouTube. So, throughout this week, yeah, okay, I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that I'm going to have to be getting out, like, these three reviews during this week. But, you know what? I'm just gonna stop saying the reasons why, because you guys already know. It's either family, friends, or schoolwork. Or sometimes all of them. And you know what? I'm getting very annoyed about that. I'm getting very annoyed about having to give out the reason. I'm getting annoyed that I can't get these things out on time, even though I really want to. So, you know what? I'm sorry for this, but you guys already heard it. It's probably getting annoying to hear too. So, I'm just gonna stop saying it because I already know what you guys know. And if you're new on the channel, then I'm sorry that you don't know. But I just already listed the three reasons. So I'm sorry for that. It's just it happens. Okay, that's all I can say about it. But pretty much this whole entire week, I'm going to be doing the three Santa Claus movies. So with that, let's get started. So the so the movie is about a businessman named Scott Calvin. Ingenious initials, by the way. No one can notice that. Actually, yeah, they even point out in their own movie. I guess they thought it was so genius and they had to bring it up. Um, he's but Scott Calvin is a businessman in a toy factory, the most wide marketing ploy. Um, who is going through some hard times with a divorce. Although even if he's hardly spent any time with his son, his wife Laura, who is now remarried to a man named Neil, for some odd reason decides to let him see the kid on Christmas Eve. Not on Christmas Day or anything, not to actually have fun on Christmas, but the night before Christmas. And if you're saying, like, okay, she meant to have him there for the 2 days, no, she didn't. Later on, in the morning, even before Scott Calvin woke up, she's there ready to pick him up. Either Scott slept in until like 2, or she just got home early from whatever it was that she was doing. But she needed to drop him off for some reason on Christmas Eve, and they spend Christmas Eve together in pretty normal fashion by burning a turkey, then having to go to a diner where, for some odd reason, most dads are. I guess that's a common if you birthed a turkey diner on Christmas Day. And but then things get a little bit more interesting that night when Santa, being kind of sloppy this night, accidentally makes a very loud thud on the roof. This never happened before, but it happened now because the plot demands it, I guess. But now Scott goes. So now, his son Charlie is now going over to wake up his dad. So Scott doesn't hear it at first, but when he hears that third thud, then he gets up and walks out to see if anyone tried to break into the house via the roof. So when he goes out there, he notices a guy completely dressed up as Santa Claus with a sleigh on his roof and reindeer, somehow not questioning any of this. He just yells, "Hey you!" and that for some odd reason causes him to slip off the roof. Santa's greatest weakness? Yelling, "Hey you!" while he's on the roof? But from a fall that wasn't that fatal, Santa Claus is now dead, and was a Jedi, I guess, because he completely disappears after he died. Didn't know he took up. I didn't know he was a Padawan even, but okay. And through a kind of dumb idea that somehow works, Scott just decides to read the card, and that makes him Santa. Okay, I guess it is a little bit more detailed like than that. He has to put on the coat and everything, but the card just says Santa Claus. And all the little extra stuff is written very small inside of the ribbon. Even in the sequel, they have to use like a freaking huge magnifying glass to actually see what this card says, and yet they expect people to know. Why do they expect people to know what this means? Some guy dressed up as Santa Claus with a sleigh on someone's roof and reindeer are there, and they say, they'll figure it out. So he eventually decides to put on the coat instead of calling the cops about a man who just died or ran away. Seems like the smart idea. And then a ladder appears because why not? And they climb up it to see the reindeer, which were apparently very well hidden and completely silent up until this point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would have made some noise or something seeing the guy who was commanding them fall off a roof. But no, they're just like, whatever. So he, so Scott and Charlie eventually get in the sleigh, deliver the presents to all the kids in the world, and then go back to the North Pole, where none of the elves seem to care about the guy who has been Santa for who knows how long being dead. These elves are evil. I mean, really, they're just like, oh, he died. Typical. Okay, what's your name? Yeah, Scott Calvin? Oh, okay. Well, you're the new Santa. I don't want it. Shut up, you're the new Santa. You don't have a choice in the matter. And yes, they really don't give him a choice. They just let him in here, and they just are sort of like, they'll figure it out. So he's there, and somehow is just like, nothing's really that odd here. And eventually, he wakes up at his house wearing the pajamas he wore at the North Pole, implying that it wasn't a dream, but he still thinks it was. Why? I mean, I get being a little bit delusional. I mean, getting a little bit in denial or something, but you're wearing the pajamas you wore there, and your son Charlie also had this dream. You might want to look into this a bit more, be a little bit more concerned. But no, he's just sort of like, it's probably just a dream. I probably just got these clothes from an anonymous source. So, as the movie continues, so is the transformation of Scott turning into Santa. Still not believing that this is a real thing until his son shows him a snow globe, he just keeps on denying it and not going to work, I guess. Okay, he just loses his job, and yet they kept the house on a severance package. I don't know. So now he also is getting the naughty and nice list, is checking people that he walks by and somehow knows their name automatically. He's growing a beard. Whenever he shaves it off, it keeps on coming back. His hair is turning white, and he's getting fatter. And actually a pretty good practical effect. But he still denies that he's Santa, but then his son shows him a snow globe. Everything's okay now. And all of a sudden, the elf who he met at the North Pole, Bernard, comes in and says, okay, well now you know who you are. You still don't know anything about our protocol, but you know who you are, so come on, let's go to North Pole. And then he's just like, why not? Oh, and he also kidnaps his son Charlie too. Father of the Year. And now they go to the North Pole. They're getting ready for Christmas. The cops are arresting random people in Santa Claus costumes on the streets. Okay. It's actually kind of funny though. They just like arrest all these random people who are dressed up as Santa. It's pretty funny. Um, and they naturally assume that Scott is insane, which makes a whole lot of sense. He's a guy who's believing he's Santa. This makes complete sense. I would throw him into an insane asylum. That's where someone who is believing they are Santa, not just for one night of the year, but through the whole year, would need to be. Unless they have a job on a movie or something, it makes no sense why they would do that. But now he's Santa and goes into houses, somehow not getting arrested until he comes to his ex-wife's house. But then his ex-wife sees him as Santa and says, oh, well, he's Santa. I mean, okay, it's kind of nice that she does just, like, when she looks at him, she just sees Santa. And that's actually kind of a nice idea to go with. And that would be good if it weren't for Neil, who's completely saying the exact reason why he's not Santa. So kind of destroying the scene. Oh, and he also brings up the two gifts that these two never got on Christmas because no reason really. They never got these gifts that they wanted because no discernible reason. They never really say why they didn't get these. They just say they don't get them. But hey, they got them like 30 years later. Mission accomplished, I guess. And now he's Santa forever. Probably going to get arrested next year, but he still flies off on his magical sleigh, being carried by flying reindeer with no one questioning it at all. Okay, so this idea is not a bad idea. Actually, it's kind of cool to see. They do have this transformation done pretty well, and the practical effects that they use on Tim Allen are actually really good, and Tim Allen does a pretty good performance. But there are some aspects of it that I just think were not needed, like the divorce thing. That's completely unnecessary. In fact, I mean, okay, yeah, it makes a sequel happen, but it's still unnecessary. They could have just had him still be married and maybe going through some trouble. That would have been fine. Maybe have Laura go out on a business trip that she has to go on when she has to leave Charlie and Scott. That would be fine. Maybe have Neil as her brother or something. That would work. That would have no problem. They pretty much already have like a sibling relationship in the movie, so it doesn't really change anything. And you could still have him be a distant father. You don't have to make it that they're divorced. But they just said, well, a lot of kids' movies have this, so let's be one of those kids' movies. Because we need this for no discernible reason. It could have just been a sort of okay family that just has some trouble every now and then. But no, they need to be divorced for no reason, creating the thing every kid wants to hear talk about divorcement arrangements. Talking about the custody of the kid, who gets what, and all that stuff. Because they needed to do that. So I do see how it can be good, and there are a lot of creative things in it. Like I do like what they do with the elf village. The idea with the Santa Claus actually being a Claus is pretty creative. And I do really enjoy some of the ideas that they have, like arresting random people dressed up as Santa Claus on the street. That's still really funny. But if you throw in a lot of unneeded plots, it just gets cluttered. And it doesn't work that way. You shouldn't have all this extra stuff. I mean, okay, it's not bad extra stuff, and in some respect it is pretty good. But they don't really dive into it, and it's just sort of there. It doesn't feel like it's needed at all. But I still do enjoy what they do with it. The, the transformation stuff, while feels a little bit strange at times, I do enjoy to watch. Again, the practical effects are really good. But there are some things that I do dislike, like the divorcing stuff. I don't see why that was needed. Neil feels like kind of a pointless character. But I'll get onto him later. And I think they should have had a little bit more focus on this whole entire elf thing and how, and maybe having Santa actually learn some of the protocol. Like maybe send him a few handbooks or something. But no, they just say, hey, we'll send you this whole entire, like, 20-something box little naughty and nice list that you have to check twice in November. You got a month to read this, buddy. You have to read it now. But they couldn't get anyone else more qualified or anything. And the whole entire thing with the claws isn't bad. And actually, I do really enjoy what they do. And it is a pretty interesting idea. It's just, why not have this writing in a bit bigger of a font? Like, this is really important stuff, and yet you just expect someone to have, like, a magnifying glass and look at the little ribbon area and just be like, oh, so if I put on this coat, then I'm gonna become Santa Claus. Okay. And what if this was a girl who did this? Then they would have a Mrs. Claus going around and doing all this. That would kind of destroy the magic. And they got this random thing with snow globes, because who doesn't associate the holiday with snow globes? I mean, there are a lot of random stuff, and I might be bashing it a bit too much, but there is just a lot of random stuff in this. That's not to say it's not funny, it is. And there is some really good and creative stuff in there. Like how they compare their night before and after they knocked over Santa. Like, for one, they meet this elf named Judy. Well, a few hours before, they were also served some food at the cafe by this waitress named Judy. That's really well done. And I do like how they kind of make that comparison. But it's not really done that often. There aren't that many comparisons to be made outside of that one with Judy and, well, Scott's name. And it just kind of feels kind of strange when they just look back at it like that and then realize, oh yeah, we didn't meet anyone else named Bernard. So where did they get Bernard from? Did Scott just think, meh, he was just in the dream that we both had and that I got pajamas from somehow? And he doesn't even question how he got these pajamas still. He's just sort of like, these are comfy pajamas, I won't question it. I mean, I guess don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but I will look a more questionable horse in the mouth. I mean, but it's still a pretty good idea, and it's not done that bad. There are some pretty funny moments, even though I didn't laugh as much as I did when I was younger, but it is still a kind of fun idea. But there are some things that are pretty pointless in it. So, for that, I'm gonna give the story a 6 out of 10, because there are some good and creative ideas. It's just, there are a lot of pointless things as well. So, now on to the characters. So, for the characters, I pretty much feel the same way I do about the story. But I am going to still talk about them. So first off, we have Scott Calvin. Now, is it just me, or by the end of his transformation to Santa Claus, does it seem a little bit more like an identity crisis? I mean, like, I know this has nothing to do with the character, really. It's just, by the end, when he's talking to this cop, and the cop's just asking for his real name, he keeps on saying various different forms of the word Santa Claus. This just feels really strange to me. I don't know why. It just really does. But regardless, Scott Calvin isn't really a bad character. In fact, he's much like Mr. Fox. He can be, except for a little bit more cynical about things. Which I guess makes a bit more sense for the idea they're trying to do. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem like how I would picture a guy playing Santa. And let me say this, Tim Allen does do a good job with this role. He's sort of the part of it that makes it all feel like a really likable and new character. Even though we had already seen something like, well, a pretty bad Santa before. It's not anything really that new, but it's not bad with what he does with it. His performance is sort of the thing that carries the whole character, from just being some cynic guy who we can't really follow that much and we don't really like, to being actually a pretty good version of Santa who is also just, even before he's Santa, he's just trying to spend more time with this kid. And that's not really bad. I mean, it's, okay, he's not the best at taking care of his son, but it still seems like he does take the time with his son. And he does try and spend more time with him. So, he's not a bad character, really. And Tim Allen's performance is what mainly makes that. And then after him, we have Charlie, who is really just the little kid of the movie. Yeah, I know that's pretty obvious, but that's pretty much his whole character, is just being the little kid. Now, later on in the sequels, he does get a little bit more of a character developed, or at least in the second one he does, in the third one he's hardly there, but he does get a little bit more of a development with his character. Here, it just sort of seems like he's just a kid. And for the most part, they did write him pretty well. He does sort of seem like a normal little kid. And really, I don't see why his parents were so concerned about him. Like, oh no, he believes in Santa Claus. The horror! Oh my god, it must be something evil. I really don't get it. I mean, I'm 14 and I still wrote a letter to Santa Claus this year. Maybe that's just because I'm that pathetic, but yeah, I mean, I don't see what the big problem was. Like, this kid, at least like 6 or 7, and yet they're treating him still believing in Santa Claus as like this huge issue just because they didn't believe in Santa Claus at this age. But look at what happened to them. Is my example. I mean, one of them is just some child psychologist, which isn't a bad job, I guess. But Laura, I have no idea what her job is. I don't remember them explaining, and I'm still wondering what her job is. But it's still not that bad. But he still has a pretty good and well done character. It's just, he could have been done a little bit better. But I do give him some credit for making him actually seem a little bit more like a real kid. And then we have Laura. Oh god, I just like this character. Now, no, it is not just because we share the same name, that I dislike her and it just feels a little bit weird, that's all. No, the reason I dislike her is because she's annoying. Okay, so again, all the things about her son still believing in Santa Claus, I still don't see the problem in that. And that's like a huge plot device in the movie, so I don't see why it's such a big deal. And she treats it like it's a huge issue that needs to be focused on. They need a child psychologist for this. They need a therapist. They need a brain scan. Something. They need to find out why he still believes in Santa Claus at the age of 6 or 7. He's 6 or 7. Get over it. Kids can believe in Santa Claus. It's not a big issue. I don't really see why she had a big problem with this. And for something that's so important to the movie, it's kind of glossed over in the end. Yeah, in the end of the movie, she just sort of sees Scott as Santa, and she's just like, oh, well, he's Santa. Okay, plot over. I'm just like, what? Why do we need that? Again, another pointless thing. We don't need that. And Laura's Laura's mainly the character that's giving out most of this pointlessness. She doesn't need to be like this. She could have been a good character, but instead she's really annoying to me. I don't know, is it just me? She's really annoying. That's all I can say about her, is that she got on my nerves a lot. She doesn't have a good character. She's just there to be annoying to me. And if it was done right, then she could have been funny. She could have been a pretty good comic failure. But no, she's just really annoying. We don't know what she does, which I guess shouldn't really matter, but still, I want to know what her job is. Because reasons, I just want to know. And she doesn't seem to be a nice person, really. She just sort of seems pretty bitter. And she kind of seems to be living her life through this kid for some reason. I don't know why. It's just what she is. And she's really annoying. It bothers me. And then we have her husband, Neil, who I gotta say is a bit better than her in the fact that he's at least funny. Yeah, okay, so he's pretty much a lot like his wife, which I guess, hey, that's why they got married. But he's a whole lot better of a character. He's just more funny. That's really all I gotta say about him, is that he just provides more humor into it. And he's not bad at it. He's a good comic. He's a good comedy character, so I don't mind him. Moving on. Then we have Judy, who is really a little bit too nice to me. Like, okay, this is not really an issue I should have, but she seems a little bit too joyful. Like, okay, so she's been around for years, hundreds of years, and yet she's still smiling and just happy to be a part of the job. I don't know, was there something in between these movies that had her really annoyed about this job or something? And, like, okay, this was this actress's only role, and with that taken in mind, she does a great job. Like, okay, this was her only movie, and she did really good with that little experience. But I just didn't write this character that well to me. She's just a little bit too joyful. It doesn't really seem like she's been doing this for hundreds of years. It seems like she's been doing this for at least, like, 2 years or something, and is still just kind of happy to be a part of the team. I don't know, maybe, and she is still a very kind character, and I can see what they're trying to do with her, and for the most part, it works pretty well. It's just, she just seemed a bit too happy to me at some points here and there. But all that can be overshadowed by far my favorite character out of this whole franchise, Bernard. why do I like this character? Because he's fun and he takes his job seriously. He's not like any of the other characters in this movie who just sort of shrug off this job as, meh, it's just an easy job, you know what I mean? It's nothing big. No, he takes this job freaking seriously. And this actor did go places. He's in like 49 other movies. So that's pretty cool. He's even in Addams Family Values, which I thought was kind of neat. And the actor does a great job with this as well. And I really like what they did with this character. He takes his job seriously. He's not fooling around with this. It's clear he's been doing this for a long time and knows how this works. Even though he might know it a bit too well, because when Santa dies, he doesn't even look at all upset. He's just sort of like, he died, we'll get a new one. I mean, that just felt a little bit strange to me, but outside of that, he is really good, and he is pretty funny at times, too. Like, when he just appears randomly in the house, he still is pretty funny in those scenes. So I do enjoy what they did with them. And that's pretty much it for the main cast of characters in this movie. And if you guys want me to talk about the other elves, then let me know down in the comments. I'll talk about them in the sequel, which will be my next review, so I let you know that a little bit earlier than I usually do. But for the characters, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Like, okay, there are some characters I do really enjoy, at least watching and everything, which is Scott Calvin. Charlie's not bad. Bernard is really my favorite character out of all this, and Neil can bring in some funny lines. And Judy is an honorary number 5. She's not bad. It might be a little bit too joyful and bubbly at times, but she's still not a bad character. But then there's one character that really just sort of seems like the Jar Jar Binks to me. That's Laura. I really dislike her. She never got better to me. She just got even worse with time. So, I really don't like her character. No offense to this actress. I'm sure she's doing her best with what she has. It's just, it's not well written for you. It wasn't that good of a character. She could have been done better, but she wasn't. She was just done pretty poorly. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for them. So, I've kind of bashed this movie a lot, haven't I? So, what do I actually think of it? Well, I can see why it's watched every year. There is sort of that charm and likability to it. And I did find myself really enjoying it. Even at a more cynical time, I still like watching it. It is still a pretty fun movie for me to watch. But there are some parts of it that are negatives, like the divorcing stuff isn't really needed, and the stuff with Charlie not supposed to be believing in it, in Santa Claus, that just drove me nuts in this. I got really annoyed about it. I mean, he's a kid. Let him believe in Santa Claus. He's not gonna be doing it for that much longer. Time will eventually take its toll. Why is this a big concern? And it's not even like this tiny little thing that they just sort of shrug off. No, it's a main subplot. In fact, it's the reason why Scott is not allowed to see his son. And they take all custody from him. It's because he got him to believe in Santa Claus. Bastard. I don't know. It really makes no sense to me. So, but there are some very creative stuff in it. I did find myself liking most of the characters. Again, most. But, yeah, I do still really enjoy it. It's still a fun movie, and I kind of feel this way about the whole franchise. But soon you'll be finding out, because I'm going to be doing all those this week. Again, I'm sorry for that. So, yeah, the next one will be the sequel. Yeah, bye.